Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So, nothing to start with like a nice good coffee here, right? So, cheers. I think that it's very important that we talk about Aperture, right? Just to get this out of the way. I hope you guys had a good weekend, had a good day, but I think today's time to talk about Aperture. Now, what is Aperture? Just to put it in the simple term, is basically how much light your lens are being let in, right? So the lower it is, the more light there will be in. The higher the number is, there's gonna be no kind of lighting, or the hole that it's inside of the lens, you'll see that it was gonna close up, so it's not gonna let as much light in. There's also another part to this, and I know, like, I've watched so many videos, and I know that maybe for the most part everyone's saying what an aperture is, why I use it. What I haven't found yet, and this is just me, maybe there is a video out there where it actually tells you when and where you should use it. Now for me, for example, I noticed that, like, I like to do videography and photography. I know there's people that only do photography, and I know there's people that only do videography. So why would I want to, as a photographer, use a lower aperture versus a higher aperture number? And then as a videographer, why would I want to use a lower number versus a higher number? Now, that's something that we're gonna talk about in this video, and I hope you guys stay tuned, because this is something that's going to relate also to what we spoke last time, which was the shutter speed. And everything that I will be breaking down for you guys is something that it's going to relate for the next video that we'll be talking about, which will be the ISO. And that way, these are gonna be the trifectas, the triangle, I don't know, whatever you guys want to call it, but it's something that you guys are going to see that with knowing these three basics is what's gonna get you and enhance your skills as a videographer. Remember guys, there's two parts to being a videographer. There's the film portion of this, and there is the editing portion of this. Right now we're focusing strictly on only learning on what the film basics is. And so last time was the shutter speed. If you have not checked that video out, make sure to check it up in this link right here. I get so excited with these things, so I apologize if I'm rambling and talking too much crap. And the other part of this video is going to be the aperture of your lens. In your lens, you're also going to notice that there's some lenses that are more expensive than the other. Now, is it worth it to purchase a more expensive lens versus cheaper lens? I mean, it all depends on what you want. Obviously, I can go breaking down to details why a lens that is cheaper might be the best option for you versus a more expensive, or vice versa, but that all depends on what you need it for. So we're gonna first go into breaking down the first part, which is when should you use a lower versus a higher aperture as a photographer.
Are you excited about your big day today?
I am, but I'm gonna miss you.
I'm gonna miss you too. Can you tell them what you're doing?
Nursing orientation.
Oh, my girl just became a nurse.
Fun.
The whole weekend. How was your breakdown?
They were great. I didn't have any.
So this is actually one of the first times that she's not coming with me to a meeting, so I'm gonna miss her a lot in this, but at the end of the day, this is something that obviously is my passion as much as it is hers. She's also now going to start her new journey into nursing, which I know the entire weekend she was so stressed about it. Even though she's always doubting herself, I know that she was gonna pass, I know that she was smart, I know that she, she's always hustling, so like, thank goodness that everything just, came out good for her, and now she's starting her first day today in her nursing, so pretty cool. Why am I deciding to break photos versus videos? And honestly, that just comes down to what your preference is. I'm going to show you guys the difference between shooting in photo and videos in the aperture. So first of all, an aperture is what you guys see on your camera, the ring of the camera. So you're gonna see that there's numbers that it goes from 1.2, 1.4, 1.8, 2.0, and it keeps going up to all the way to 16. Now, for most people are using zoom lenses normally tend to stop at 2.8 for the G Masters, but if you go down to Sigma, you're gonna see that those go down to 1.8 all the way to 16.0. Now, when you're doing photography, you're going to see that you're gonna want to decide what aperture you're gonna use, because number one is the light. If the lighting is really good, you're probably not going to need really low aperture. That also goes in, if you don't have good lighting, then you're gonna need a very, very low aperture, just because you need a lot of light to come in. As the light is coming in, you're going to see that there's going to be a lot of depth of field, and therefore if it's just one person like me right now, you're going to see a lot of depth of field in the back. Now you can see that there's a lot of blurriness in the background, and then the higher the aperture goes, the less blurry is going to get. So then therefore, when would you want to use that? So if it's just one person, that depth of field is gonna make it look very cinematic, very professional. But when you're using 2 to 3 people, it could, in photography, it's going to make other edges look very blurry, which obviously that's not what you want. You would want a very nice, you want your objects to pop out and look good, not blurry. So I don't know if this has happened to you. Whenever you shoot in photography, maybe in weddings or parties, and you have it at 1.4, 1.8, depending on the lens that you're using, you're going to notice that other people on the other side just going to look blurry versus actually looking, you know, the way that you want it to look, where it's blurry on the outside, but the image of the people in the inside, which is your object, has to look clean, pops out. So it's something that I have learned throughout the years, but we can go ahead and keep talking after this meeting.
I used to stick around, definitely not for too long.
All right, so we had a successful meeting with our friend Victoria. Talked a lot about what's gonna be happening next for her business and how we want to portray her business. So let's get back to what we're talking about. We're talking about photography and how do you know which aperture to use it on. So let's say, for example, as I'm gonna be showing here, is if you're someone who, if you're, let's say, at a wedding, most likely you're gonna be having multiple people. You're gonna have between 10, 12, 13, 14, 15 people, right? And in my case, now everyone might be different. You're gonna have to really see the space that you have, what's your lighting looking like, and who you're trying to shoot. So if it's just one person, personally, I like to shoot my 85 or 55 millimeter lens. Now, therefore, I would like to shoot maybe at 1.4 aperture just so I can have that really crispy look, and that's what people mostly like at the end of the day. And so I like to get that crispy look where I, like, you know, have blurriness in the background. So therefore that 1.4 or 1.8, it's gonna give me the best look for what I am looking for. Let's say there's two people, I still want to get that nice depth of field, so now I'm gonna be using that 2.8. At 2.8, you're still gonna see that depth of field, and it shouldn't be much, and you should still see your object. Now, how clearly, that all depends on the lens that you're using and the camera that you're using, but mainly if you use it at 2.8, that should be where you should still see blurriness in the background, but not as much as you see it on the 1.4. And for some reason, us as the average user, we tend to say that, you know, the more blurry there is in the back end, in the back of the picture, the more you think it's more professional, but not necessarily true. But now let's say scenario number 3, that now let's say that you have multiple people. Now let's say you have 4 to 5 people. What would be the best way? Well, number 1, you're gonna obviously want to have someone who you want to see that there's a lot of space for you to shoot on. So therefore, my range, it's gonna be a lot different. So therefore, I'm probably gonna not use the 85 anymore. I'll probably use the 55, maybe a 24 millimeter, maybe even the 35 millimeter or the 24. It all depends. So then therefore, I'm gonna back up a lot more. But this time, instead of shooting at 2.8, I'm probably gonna be shooting at 4.0 aperture, or maybe at 5.6 is probably the highest that I would like to go to, just because I still want that kind of depth of field, and it still should get the depth of field, but it won't be as crispy as it is for one person. So now you got to think of it like that. So in photography, if you have multiple people, and now let's say you have a shot of 6 people, you're gonna want to now back up as much as possible, and this is just for the range, and then you're gonna want to shoot at a higher aperture so you can make sure that every single person that is in your frame is going to be looking smoothly. Did you get that? I know there's a lot going on here, but that's for the photography side of things, and I understand that it might be a little bit overwhelming, but those are the things that you got to play around with. Remember, every camera has an ISO, which is the artificial light, which we'll be doing in another video. But for right now, if you're now practicing with your aperture, you're gonna want to know that you can have it in auto, but most realistically, if you're a professional who's taking photos and videos for other people, you don't want that, because the look that you're trying to create for your picture is not gonna be there. Rewinding everything that we just talked about, you're gonna want to think about, okay, is it one person in my shot? Okay, do I want to create a very professional look? Then 1.8, 2.8 at most is where you want to be at. Now, if you have multiple people, between 3 to 4 or 5 people, then you're going to want your aperture at 4.0 or maybe 5.6. But don't forget, guys, not just because of the aperture, but of lighting reasons, you will be able to have your aperture that high.
They not in a room. I've been so real, I'm dead to the tomb. They in the way, they gotta move. I got a gas, they running on fumes. Told them way back, it's something new. It's me and Dan, you gotta choose. I'm taking what's mine, I'm doing fine. Don't see the vision, they looking so blind. I hit my low, I don't got the time. Crossing my T's and they dotting in those eyes. Don't take it.
Yeah!
Partner up for this workout, all right? Reason being, it makes it a lot more smoother and a lot more efficient. They trying to make me laugh. Go!
If I do not oblige, I can't belabor like none of these guys. They hit me once and I'm cutting the ties. I was so low, but I'm back on the rise. It's real.
Good job, dude. Nice work. Nice work. Awesome work. Good job.
Thank you. Good job.
Good dude. I know.
How are you?
Good job, dude.
Work.
I'm too awkward.
All right. So, workout finished. Right, baby?
Yeah.
She's so sad. Come here. But either way, today's workout was actually pretty intense. What was your favorite part?
I died.
You died. You look alive to me.
I died in the workout. Came back to life.
Well, yeah.
My favorite part was watching you go.
Was it now?
Yeah.
Everybody loves to
You're
see
such
me
a
die.
badass.
No, I'm not. But today's workout was pretty brutal. It was actually one of those workouts. Where are you going? It was one of those workouts that was actually intense and pushes you to your limit. That 6 rounds of deadlifts, Mike, I gotta give it to you. That shit was deadly.
The second part was worse for me.
The second part was pretty rough too. I wanted to do pull-ups, but he made me do muscle-ups. But either way, that was a good workout. Good job, Mike. Talking about the videography side of Aperture, as you know now, with photography, when you're looking for that subject, just go rewind and go watch the first part before I repeat myself. You know that I'm all into videography. It's what I enjoy the most. Knowing both is actually a benefit to you. Just anybody in the world can actually shoot a video for you or take good photos for you, because almost any phone can take anything at a really good quality. So let's go back into Aperture for your lens. The subject matters, but not as much as when you're dealing with a photo. So when you're doing a video, you know that if you're shooting at 1.4, you're getting that shallow depth of field. So let me show you real quick. If you look at me right now, we are at 1.4. This is 1.4. You can see that there's a lot of blurriness in the background, also called as sharpening. In post-production, you can actually blurry this background. Now, it might be more artificial than in actually doing it from your lens. It might look a little different, but it still gets the job done. 1.8, you can see here now, right? You can, now I'm focused the entire time. Now, even if I would have a second person like babe, you can now see that it goes from blurry into I am focused and she's blurry. But if we go back and forth, you can still see that she's shown and I'm blurry. But if we're both right in the middle, you can still see that we're both not blurry. Thank you. Bye. 2.8. Now, here is a really good stop. If there's anything you take away from this video, you can actually go on your phone into your settings and you can find for Aperture, and you can actually put this into your phone so that you can get the most sharpening tool out of it. So if this is something that, you know, obviously doesn't just come with our cameras, our professional cameras, but it also comes with your phone. So 2.8 also is a really good tool. It's a really good stop where to know that it's gonna be very blurry in the background. Now, not super blurry as 1.4, but you get the gist of it. Now, let's just take it up a notch and let's go to 4.0. 4.0, you can see that it's less blurry here now, right? So now if I get my wife back into the shot, she's back with me, you can still see my face a lot less blurrier. Can you see that? Mm-hmm. Now, on the last one, do you remember that it was it was blurry?
I was blurry.
You were blurry even if I go in? You might be a little blurry, but not as bad as the other one. So then what if we change it to 5.6? 5.6, kind of the same, right? So if you go in a little bit, show your face, you know, it's still a little blurry, but not as bad as 4.0, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Bye. If there's anything you take away from doing photos to videos, is that the lower you go, the blurrier is going to be in the background. The more professional it may look, but it also depends on the shot that you want. The higher you go, the less blurry it's going to look, And obviously the more focus, this is more for when you're doing landscape or you're trying to choose multiple people in one shot. Lastly guys, when it comes to videography, you have to understand that lighting is so important. As you can see here, we're like in a warehouse area, and you can see that there's a lot of lighting. There's a reason why I chose this lighting. This lighting right here helps me to get my highest aperture. If I was somewhere else where it was very dark, my aperture would not be able to go over 2.8 without looking very dark. And obviously as an image, and people who are watching your content, they do not want to watch anything that is dark or something that it looks grainy. But I hope you guys understand the gist of it, where you guys can see now what the difference is in aperture. And now let's talk about pricing for the lens and which lens will best fit you. I hope you guys learned a lot for today's video, the difference between photography and video for aperture. If there's anything else that you guys need my help with, please feel free to comment, or if you have me on Instagram, DM me, or if you have my number, you know, feel free to text me at any time. But I do want to say on the description below, I will be leaving 3 of the lenses that I use that you guys can go ahead and, you know, follow the affiliated link to Amazon to see if you would want to purchase this brand new. Or you guys can go ahead and offer up something that I would recommend for people that don't have the money. If you're someone like me that does not have the budget to be purchasing a $2,000 lens, so then I would just say go into offer up and just wait for the right time, the right moment to just purchase the perfect lens that you need for yourself. But other than that, I will be leaving the affiliated link that you will see there with it on Amazon, where you can find out, you know, these lenses, the ones that I use. Once again, if you're looking into purchasing the lens, if you're a beginner photographer or a beginner videographer, the most important thing to really do is to purchase a lens that is underneath the 2.8. And the reason that I would suggest that is just because the human eye, the people in general, the people who are going to be watching your videos and watching your photos and so forth, are the people that just feel that they want to see some professionalism over something that people can just see that they took it on their iPhone. If you're someone who's just taking photos and your aperture is at 4.0 and it's not landscape, most likely it's not going to look as professional as it would look on a 2.8 or a 1.8. Now, granted, you also have to think about the focal lengths of your lenses. Now, this is just getting a little bit off topic, but you know, at the end of the day, everything is just works hand to hand when you're doing any type of videography or photography. But for this video, it was all about aperture. And so it's late night. If you guys have made it this far to this video, I do want to say I really appreciate you guys. Thank you for staying in, staying tuned for my video, just being here, learning aperture with me. See you guys in the next one. 3, 2, 1.